Over 250 gang leaders have been sentenced to life in prison since the year 2000. Behind those numbers are faces that once ruled cities with fear, controlled armies of criminals, and ran billion-dollar empires built on blood. But when the walls closed in and the judges read the sentences, something strange happened. These men who ordered murders without blinking reacted in ways no one saw coming. Some smiled like they won, others broke apart in silence, and a few simply vanished before justice could touch them. But why do these criminal masterminds react so differently to the same brutal fate? What goes through a man's mind when he hears he's never walking free again? Watch till the end, because we're stepping into the final moments of 7 of the world's most dangerous gang leaders, and how they responded when justice finally caught up. 1. El Chapo's final words. In July 2019, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman walked into a federal courtroom in New York with a calmness that almost felt rehearsed. This was the kingpin behind the Sinaloa cartel, a criminal mastermind who had trafficked tons of cocaine into the U.S., bribed politicians, and escaped from not 1, but 2 maximum security prisons. His legacy was carved in tunnels, soaked in blood, and wrapped in billions of dirty dollars. The courtroom was filled with prosecutors, journalists, and federal agents who had chased him for years. And now, they had him. When the sentence came life in prison plus 30 years, El Chapo didn't flinch. He didn't plead or ask for mercy. Instead, he delivered one final speech. "There was no justice here," he said, staring directly at the judge. He claimed the trial had been rigged, that jurors were corrupted, and that his human rights had been violated. He described 23-hour days in solitary confinement, the lack of sunlight, and the silence he was forced to endure. No tears, no regret, just a man who refused to look defeated. The smirk stayed on his face like the law still couldn't touch him. He now sits locked inside ADX Florence in Colorado, the most secure prison in America. But his power didn't end at the prison gate. His sons, known as Los Chapitos, continue cartel operations with even more aggression. El Chapo may have lost his freedom, but the empire he built is still standing. And that smirk, it's still out there, worn by the next generation. 2. Whitey Bulger. James Whitey Bulger was no ordinary gangster. The man ran Boston's underworld for decades. He had FBI agents in his pocket. He was behind at least 11 murders, and yet he vanished for 16 years before finally getting caught. When he walked into a Boston courtroom in 2013, people wanted to see a monster crushed, but Bulger gave them nothing. When the judge read his 2 life sentences and added 5 more years, Bulger didn't blink. No shout, no regret, just silence. It was colder than a scream. Victims' families cried in the gallery. Prosecutors talked about justice. But Bulger stood still, like it was all beneath him. That silence followed him to prison. And in 2018, just 12 hours after being transferred to Hazleton Penitentiary in West Virginia, he was murdered by inmates. His death left as many questions as his crimes, but his last public moment, pure defiance. 3. Larry Hoover. Chicago knew Larry Hoover as the mastermind behind the Gangster Disciples. His name meant power on the streets even while he was locked up. In 1998, he received 6 life sentences after being convicted of running a massive criminal enterprise from behind bars. When the sentence was handed down, Hoover didn't lash out. He didn't speak. He lowered his head and listened, silent, unmoved. But that wasn't the end of it. Fast forward to 2024, Hoover appeared in a resentencing hearing via video. He looked older, more reserved. He said he was done with gang life, that he was now about education and peace. Some believed him, others didn't. Prosecutors pointed to how many lives his orders ended, and how the Gangster Disciples still operated in his name. Even today, people argue over whether Hoover is a reformed man or just playing the system for one more escape. 4. Salvatore the Beast. Riina. Salvatore Riina was one of the most feared men in Italy. They called him the Beast. He ran the Sicilian mafia like a dictator. Bombs, executions, even judges were fair game. When the Italian government finally caught him in 1993 after decades on the run, it felt like the country could breathe again. But Riina walked into that courtroom with his head high. Dozens of life sentences followed, but he didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't speak. His silence was louder than any scream. He looked around the courtroom like he still owned it. From behind bars, Reina kept sending orders using tiny notes. The prison couldn't cage his influence. Until 2017, when he died in custody from cancer. His last words were never recorded. But his face in court, unapologetic, untouchable, unforgiving, 5. Pablo Escobar. Pablo Escobar never saw a courtroom, but he negotiated with the law like it was a business deal. In 1991, under pressure, Escobar agreed to surrender to Colombian authorities, but only if they let him build his own prison. They agreed, and La Catedral became his fortress. Guards obeyed him, parties raged. He even ordered hits from his cell. For Escobar, justice wasn't fear, it was a game. But when officials realized he was still running the cartel, they tried to move him. That's when he escaped. 1 year later, in December 1993, Escobar was shot and killed on a rooftop in Medellin. No trial, no sentencing, just blood and silence. His reaction to the idea of a life sentence? Beat the system before it beats you. And until his last breath, he almost did. 6. Dawood Ibrahim. Dawood Ibrahim changed the face of Indian crime. His fingerprints were all over the 1993 Mumbai bombings that killed over 250 people. He created D Company, a criminal empire with global tentacles. But unlike the others, Dawood was never arrested, never sentenced. He vanished before they could catch him. Intelligence agencies say he's hiding in Pakistan, protected by powerful friends. The only public glimpse came in the late 80s, in a rare interview where he denied terrorism, but admitted he regretted some violence. Since then, nothing. No photos, no statements, just whispers. India wants him. The US wants him. But Dawood? He walks free, untouched. His reaction to justice? Stay far enough ahead so it never catches you. 7. Semyon Mogilevich. Semyon Mogilevich doesn't fit the usual gangster mold. He doesn't carry gold chains or flashy weapons. He wears suits, reads contracts, speaks softly. But behind the scenes, he's been tied to global fraud, arms trafficking, and billions in laundered money. In the 2000s, the US indicted him. The FBI added him to their most wanted list, but he never went on trial. Why? Because he lives freely in Russia under government protection. He gives interviews, laughs off the FBI, calls it political drama. He's not hiding. He doesn't need to. His courtroom moment never came. But if it did, you get the sense he'd walk in, smile, and walk out untouched. That's how invisible power works. It doesn't shout. It moves the system quietly and always stays one step ahead. 7 gang leaders. 7 very different reactions. Some faced the judge and didn't blink. Others never made it to court at all. But every one of them showed us something raw. How evil can wear a calm face. How power twists justice. And how silence can be more terrifying than rage. These final moments weren't just legal victories. They were glimpses into the mindsets of men who ruled like kings and fell like ghosts. If this story left you thinking, hit that like button. Drop your thoughts in the comments and share it with someone who's into real, raw crime stories. And don't forget subscribe and smash the bell icon so you never miss the next time justice knocks on someone's door.